Hello, and welcome to my cellar for the last time in 2023. I'm making this on Thursday night for release on Saturday morning, as always. So we'll just jump right in because this one's liable to be a little longer than normal. I even have my eyeglasses here to help read a couple of these long ones. Pardon me. All right. Happy holidays. Thank you to you and your crew for the holiday deal on the adventures. You're welcome. Don and I were sitting around and I said, hey, let's do something cool that nobody's ever done before. Let's give a discount just because it's Christmas. And let's give everybody else that's already committed, give them their money back too. Nobody ever did that before. So I don't know how well it's worked out because this deal's not over until midnight on the 31st. Okay, next. Wow, what a trove of information on Dragon's Foot and similar web forums of the earlier internet age. The earlier internet age has made me feel like I'm in a room full of copper pipes and steam. But I guess it was. I mean, good grief, when I started doing that way back when. We didn't have didn't do Facebook or any of that kind of stuff, and I never have and never will do any of that other crap, and Twitter and tweeting and none of that crap. As a lifetime video gamer and avid fantasy consumer who didn't come into active RPGing until a few years ago, I am met with a pang of regret that I was not active in those forums during those halcyon days. But as a librarian, I'm thrilled about their preservation. I would add my desire to read a Cascoid memoir bio, not because you're the last of the old guard, because you shoot the straight shit. Well, that's why I do this. I don't want to write a book, but I'll answer questions and I'll shoot you the straight shit every time. Unless it would harm someone who's dead. In which case I don't pick on dead people. Aside from your unique experience and knowledgeable opinions, I personally enjoy how authentic and genuine are in your writing and live from your cellar. I hope many agree. Well, apparently they do. Thank you. It's really funny. I have a lot of subscribers, but not many viewers. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe I need to hire a ventriloquist or something. Entertainment. Okay. Thank you again for your kind reception of my updates about our club. This is the high school club with the 3 groups. I'm very lucky and take only a modicum of credit for the club's burgeoning success. The students are the main driver of the action, and I am well advised by yourself and many other generous RPG gamers out there in the wide world. Yes, they are the main driver, but guess what? You push the ignition. You put a little gas in their tank, you push the ignition. All right, and so kudos to you too. There's one more bit of excitement I've not reported. A colleague at one of the other high schools in our system, there's 3, got a club started on his campus and is putting together a half-day exhibition of sorts as a recruitment tool. We'll do some player versus player events with club members while running a small demo encounter for interested students. Should happen toward the end of January. Wish us luck. Oh, by all means, I do. I love to hear of this. I want to see more young people, middle school, high school, take up the hobby, because after all, when all us old farts die off, it's left up to you guys. And I don't want to see anything die off right away. Okay, question. Okay. Were you contacted at all in reference to the book they're coming out with in 2024, The Making of Original Dungeons & Dragons 1970-1976? For the unaware, it's a 500-plus page book that is reproducing the original booklets and supplements with contributions from historian John Peterson, and never before seen correspondence between the original creators of D&D. Aside from if they contact you, do you think this inclusion of this lost correspondence is an attempt to get drama dollars or otherwise make purchasers of folks who long ago swore off Wizbro, TSR, etc. Seems like some prime marketing strategy to me. Okay, in order. Nope, nobody's contacted me. I find that rather interesting because from 1970 to 1976, there were Dave, Gary, Steve Marsh, Len Lakofka, myself, and perhaps Mike Bernard. Now, they were play testing, playing in the campaigns, etc. Len and Gary were collaborating on ideas. Steve Marsh was doing that also, and some of Steve's stuff got put into Blackmore. I consider everything, all of the supplements, Greyhawk, Blackmore, Eldritch Wizardry, Gods, Demigods, and Heroes, Spell, I'm blanking on the on the last one now, the miniatures rules. And let's see, did I forget another one in there? Anyway, all the supplements, all the little books that came out are all part of OD&D. They are supplements too. Greyhawk was stuff they couldn't get in the first set of books because of page limitations and the printer. Blackmore was new stuff, more stuff, Dave's stuff. It's also OD&D. It's canon. The other supplements are all considered canon because they were supplements to the original game. So I find it odd, having been involved with all the supplements, that I haven't been. No, nobody contacted me. Nobody's contacted Jim Ward, to my knowledge. So I don't know what's going on. And as far as the correspondence, there may have been a cache of letters between the principals. There are collectors in this hobby that are completists. They want to have, they will buy, if, they want to buy every single piece of ephemera that had anything to do with TSR. Old matchbooks. A letter by Gary to Dave. Ooh. All right. Drama? No. I think they're satisfying the completists. And that's who they're going to sell a bunch of the books to. The completists. And believe me, there are a whole lot of them out there. Whether or not it's people who swore off, it's the collectors. And if they're collectors of the original D&D, old school D&D, they'll buy it. No matter who publishes it, they'll buy it. Okay, here's another one from the Dragon's Foot forums. And if you haven't, dragonsfoot.org, go check them out. Gary did a strip, I did a strip, a thread. Menser did a thread. Some others did threads. I've had a lot of fun on those Dragonfoot's forums. I still pop in to read and stuff and comment from time to time. You may remember me as Kachu there, Tim. Yes, I do, and it's so nice to hear from you. Yes, you were one of the only women in any of those forums. I remember we had a couple of nice exchanges. There's something tugging in my memory about photographs. Anyway, I'm one of the rare old school female players. Yes, you are, and from what I remember of your commentary and your contributions, a damn fine one. We were a few, but we were there back then. Thankfully, times have changed regarding that. My current group is exactly 50 men and women. Actually, the most amusing thing about my group is that it's about half of us around 50, and the other half is like 25-ish. Okay, and you add those two numbers together, and then you get me. But yeah, definitely is for all ages. We have a lot of great fun together, despite the age differences. And you'll also find what I found, and I say this for others that are playing in a mixed group and are thinking about letting in some teens or recruiting some teens, is the fresh blood concept really applies here. The 25-ishes will look at one thing, and the 50s will look at it another way, and you blend those two together, and you get a pretty damned effective party, and a lot of fun, I would think. Also, I backed the Memorial Tomb Kickstarter, and that was way late, several years late. In fact, I finally did get it, at least. I thought I'd lost my money on that one. Could you PM me on Facebook or give me a way to get a hold of you through next week or whatever? Love to chat with you again. You may find this a funny story. The satanic panic isn't dead. My boys and a friend's son, mid-teens, wanted to play some D&D. Told them sure, and we set up a quickie, a very short version of Strahd. My friend, who is an intelligent middle-aged guy with a business computer degree, says, D&D? Isn't that the game where you learn to worship demons and Satan? I laughed. It was hard to get him to play. He'd ask how to collect 200, or roll the dice and yell Yahtzee. Nearly told him to just step away so as not to ruin it for the boys. My oldest son was DM, and this was one of his first. He didn't need the hassle. Finally, several hours later, he is a bit more engaged at some role-playing opportunities that he liked, and I guess killing a vampire didn't seem much like worshiping Satan. We got lucky on some dice rolls, very lucky really, and it happened that his dwarf was next and was preparing for what would surely be the killing blow. He stands up and starts swinging his hands over his head, mimicking how he's helicoptering his hammer for the final attack. Then I blurted that my strong, dumb fighter grabbed the dwarf by the ankles and started helicoptering the dwarf over my head while the dwarf continued winding up at the hammer. The kids were all laughing so hard their eyes were watering, grabbing tissues, and couldn't breathe. Then he rolled a 19 or 20 vampire down. The laughter continued for several minutes. Then I told him, that is why you play D&D with your kids. He said he understood now and that he could rarely get his kid away from the computer or phone screen for 10 minutes, much less hours. That is exactly why you play with your kids. Absolutely, positively. Good story. And then there's another story to follow that. And I think these stories are fun, and that's why I'm sharing them with you. It's like watching cat videos, you laugh at the ones where they're precious, and you laugh at the ones when they fall on their ass. Okay, some similar anecdotes for you. At Thanksgiving this year, I proposed D&D, and several of the most stingy family members lit up and were interested, having never played, but wanted to. As it was occurring at my mother-in-law's house, and she works in an old-time First Baptist church, I mentioned the idea and literally received back the plot of the chick tract Dark Dungeons. I laughed heartily and explained that in this scenario, it would be me that's the cult master. She started to see the silliness. Fast forward, we played now 2 family gatherings with 6 family members known for not participating in things, laughing and cheering around the table. I've kept the adventures in the realm of fantasy creatures so as not to upset the apple cart, but she's seen the fun and camaraderie you've described as coming around to reality. The second a bit sillier. I started a school club where I work, high school, and as a precaution sent home letters from my parents for parental permission. I received back answers like, my students using my dice. I taught them how to play. I want them to learn so they can teach me, and others similar affirming. You just never know. Cheers. You're right. You never do. You never do. Happy New Year, Tim. Just wondering what your thoughts are on Anderson's entitlement to royalties on AD&D and other book sales. Was AD&D's creation an attempt to change the game enough to deny Anderson's right to royalties, a legitimate evolution of the game, or both? Both. Very ill-conceived idea of Brian Bloom's. I'm sure he was nattering in Gary's ear about why should we pay him anything? Why should we pay him anything? He doesn't deserve it. So they concocted this idea that we call it AD&D, new game, AD&D, cut Arneson out. He could have royalties that he's entitled to on the old version, and not any on the new. And of course, we all know how that worked out. Not worth a shit. And so it was an evolution of the game, absolutely. As the one who sat there and birthed it with Gary, I can tell you it was an evolution of the game. We refined, we clarified, we reshuffled a lot of things, and then Gary took it home and produced the manuscripts. So it's a lot of things. Yeah, I tell you, in ODD, the assumption seems to be use D6s for all damages. It's true. In the first 3 books, yes. As I mentioned earlier, Greyhawk contained some stuff that wouldn't fit. And that was what wouldn't fit, amongst other things, was the combat variable damage tables. So yes, my group in Carbondale played for several weeks using all D6s. And then I got Greyhawk, and things changed a lot. I also noticed some house rules, some folks apply modifiers to OD&D. -1 for weapons for like knives, and +1 for weapons like great swords. It's a house rule. That's great. That's great. And actually, I don't under that mechanic. D6, it can affect a D6. A dagger should not inflict as much damage as a great sword, or a hammer, or a great axe. It shouldn't. It makes no. You have to have the verisimilitude of reality in fantasy gaming for it to stick together, and it makes no sense that it didn't. Now, in the earliest game version, okay, those were the rules. That's the way we played. The other one made it much more, and we paused the campaign in Carbondale. I did some retooling, and we picked it back up after Greyhawk. That's what Greyhawk was for. More stuff that hadn't been covered before. New ideas that were cropping up, people, mostly from the players. Okay, how do we handle them? What do we do about them? That's what the supplements were for. Whatever Dave's entitled to was decided by the courts a long time ago, and his estate, I'm sure, could give you more information on that. Do you feel that half-orcs should not have been a player character race? Do any of your games prominently feature half-orcs in any way, as NPCs or otherwise? No. And I've made it clear on several occasions over the almost 300 of these, over 300 of these I've done. I'm real ethically squeamish and don't like the idea of, I'm not even all that fond of half-elves, and probably wouldn't allow them in my campaign. All right? Be what you are, period. The half and half stuff is mainly min-maxing, or figuring out another unique set of characteristics. And no thanks. And where did they come from? All right, let's see. Boy, are we there already? Oh, we are. Okay. That's all the comments I have. But now I'm going to do some other stuff. First off, for Christmas, my editor gave me one of these, the Acereraks Treasure, the dice and the coin. And he had several that he had gotten for friends and reached into the bag and pulled one out for me. And I hit the jackpot. I got an uncommon one. They're blue and green, and I don't know if you can see it. I gotta see if I can see it. They have a circular, spherical void in the center, and it's full of green glitter. So as you roll them across the table and they come tumbling down the dice tower, they sparkle. Really cool. Really cool. Okay, now I'm going to do a little what I call the year in review in terms of what I found important, interesting, or of use to all of us, and wax philosophical on a topic or two, because this is the last one of the year. Of course, the year started with the ongoing shit show in Lake Geneva with the new TSR, and the year ends with it looking like the new TSR is going to be ground into dust finer than talc, because so much shit has come down on Lenos's head. Now, I don't know who else is involved in these, whether there are any other co-defendants or whatever, but it's going to go out with a whimper. He's just going to disappear after he gets these lawsuits against him. When he loses them, that'll be that, and we won't hear him again. Now, here is one thing to think about in all of this, and that is the property. Property being what it's worth, what it is in Lake Geneva, on a corner, on a main drag. That's a very choice lot. If and when the new TSR has to give up that property as part of it, the damages that it's going to get racked with, it's much more likely that a savvy investor will buy it, demolish it, and build a new house. Because it's a very old house with a lot of things that are not much in demand today. The upstairs is a warren. It's got a weird addition onto it. And so that site, that house, will probably be lost in the next year or so. Hope you had a chance to drive by and take a picture. I was looking for a calendar. And I tend to get fantasy or weird or strange. I even got a fractal calendar one year. Wall calendar, so I can, look over and see what I promised to do. And there are no post-apocalyptic art calendars that I could find in a 40-minute trip down the rabbit hole online. I think that's an oversight that somebody ought to address. I also noticed, what the hell's happened to witches? Witches used to be crones, old. Okay, stereotypes, yes. And I'm not offending anybody here. The witch was a stereotype, an old, evil, usually woman, or a spay woman who knew her herbs and things and was generally helpful. Except now in the calendars I saw, the witches look like succubi. I guess they're aiming at the 15-year-old boys. And then I noticed something else. The art of Boris Vallejo is a big deal again in the calendars. Now, this is all I'm looking at is calendars. And there's a woman named Julie Bell whose name is splashed across the top. And if anything, this stuff is even more of everything the feminists hated about Boris Vallejo's art to begin with. Curious that. What else have we had? Oh, yes, well, the saga is ongoing of D20 delving versus U.S. Customs. It's still waiting to be released from Detroit. Being a government agency, they move at a glacial pace. One of these days. Okay, let's talk about the elephant in the room this year in gaming. And that's Hasbro / WotC, otherwise known as the Hasborg. First, there was the OGL kerfuffle, brouhaha. Much ado about nothing, as it turned out, because it was all, oh, no, we didn't really mean that. Now, what exactly do you suppose that really was? I believe, and I'm not one that's prone to conspiracy theories or anything, I believe, if I had to guess, that it was a sounding of the market. And they got the information they wanted. Then, what happens every Christmas? Hasborg layoffs. 1,100 employees. At many places, a lot of them in Seattle. Or the Northwest, whatever. Laid off right before Christmas. Now, at the same time, it comes out that the 3 top executives at WotC, after selecting 1,100 people to lay off, got their bonuses. Cynthia Williams, CEO WotC, $6.55 million. Deborah Thomas, CFO Hasbro, $6.06 million. And Chris Cox, who used to be with WotC, but got bumped up to Hasbro, $9.44 million bonus, in addition to whatever bloated salaries they're probably receiving. It's unbelievable. They could have given every one of those 1,100 people $19,000 as a severance, or $1,000, or even $500. But no. Hi. Goodbye. That's obscene. Obscene. And then that brings me around to the final realization that yes, gaming is an obscenely vicious, bloodthirsty industry now, no longer what it was when I got involved all those years ago, 50 years ago. Companies in the early days would help each other set up their convention booths. Oh, can I have 3 more feet? Sure, I can give you 3 feet. You know, we helped each other. We were all engaged in building the hobby. Now the Hasborg is going to suck the substance out in the form of dollars. So let's look at the layoffs themselves. Who got laid off? It seems to me with my less than complete knowledge of WotC's structure, that the majority of the people that got laid off have to do with written, printed product. Books, adventures, modules, that type, written, printed product. A great number of them. So, what's WotC going to do to produce more product to sell, more content? I'll put on my, I don't want to appear, I'll put on my thinking cap and give you a prediction. What I think is going to happen. They're going full electronic, full internet, and they will make their money in microtransactions. Small expenditures by the players. That could be anything from $12 to enter the gaming arena, to spending extra to get a better sword, or microtransactions are insidious. $2 here, $3 there. Oh, you want the cleric spells? Okay, $15. Oh, you want that spell? Well, it's another $1.99. And at the end of the month, you spent as much or more than if you just bought the book. Now, I'm not pure as a driven snow in this regard. I play 2 games that do have microtransactions once a month. $9.99. And it makes for a better gaming experience. Train station and seaport. That's all. I don't spend any other money. That won't be it in D&D. They'll be selling mystery chests full of weapons, and it won't. They'll be selling buffs. That's where it's going. I predict. It'll be all electronic, littered with microtransactions. Just buy the parts of the books that you want. We'll see. And then I'm going to impart 2 things I learned from gaming. These aren't heavy or profound or anything like that. It was a war game that made me anti-war. Yeah, I know, it sounds weird. But it was Elon Hill board game 1914 with its unique step reduction system. And I realized that every time I flipped a counter, I was writing off 4,000, 5,000 men. Then I realized this is really horrible shit. And so I became anti-war. And it's odd because I was on my way to Vietnam. But it's what got me in, several times I get caught wearing my beads or having a pin in my lapel or something like that. Because I didn't support the war. I mean, I did my job. I did it as well as I could because other people depended upon me. But as far as McNamara and his boys back in D.C., no, I thought they were a bunch of schmucks. And then, game I just mentioned a minute ago, Train Station. I started playing Train Station when I was in chemotherapy. So that was 7, 8 years ago. And it's a commodities acquisition game. You send your trains out, you bring back stuff, and you can sell the stuff, or you can build stuff with it, or or whatever. It's very simple. And I was watching for my first billion of coins. Because right now, the stage I'm at, the coins mean virtually nothing. And so I got my first billion. Wow. And my second billion. Wow. And pretty, a while later, 500 billion. Wow. And then a trillion. And boy, when you get up there in those high numbers, those numbers multiply so fast, it's no wonder Congress can't keep ahead of what the hell we're spending and what they're voting on or not voting on with those kind of numbers. Now I've got 17 trillion coins. There's not enough stuff in the game I could spend them on. The money becomes meaningless. It's not even a way to keep score now. I learned that from a game too. All right, I believe I've hit everything, ranted on everything I wanted. Apparently the goat says it's time to go. So I'll wish you and yours a better 2024. We always wish the next year to be better than the last for whatever reasons. Even if you had a great year, I hope you have a better year. So Happy New Year. And as always, Dodata Govi. Hello, and welcome to my cellar.
He's the curmudgeon who wrote about the dungeons. Now he's the feller, live from the cellar. Talks about D&D and old school RPGs. Still quite a feller, the curmudgeon in the cellar. Last man around when them rates went down. Called it Gary in that Lake Geneva town. Hey Gary, it's an awful mess. Let me edit, we'll have success. D&D and Dragon Magazine. He's the curmudgeon who wrote about the dungeons. Now he's the feller, live from the cellar. Talks about D&D and old school RPGs, but he's still quite the feller, the curmudgeon in the cellar. Magic missile, it's a mortar shell. Make it hit in the first level spell. Brought psionics to the game to attack that wizard's brain. ESR and fantasy, collection of micro armory. Titan with tramp under a tree, high as could be. He's the curmudgeon who wrote about the dungeons. Now he's the feller, live from the cellar. Talks about D&D and old school RPGs, but he's still quite the feller, the curmudgeon in the cellar. Still quite the feller, the curmudgeon in the cellar. Curmudgeon.